So, have you ever been in one of those meetings where let's say it's like 2:30 p.m. on a Tuesday?
Oh, the worst time.
Right. The energy is just absolutely dead. People are, checking their phones under the table, staring at the clock.
Mm-hmm.
And then the door opens, and this one specific person walks in. And it's almost like someone opened a window in a stuffy room. The air just completely changes.
Yeah, everyone sits up a little straighter.
Exactly. The vibe goes from, let's just get this over with, to, okay, something is actually happening now.
Oh, absolutely. It's really the difference between a flashlight and a spotlight. I mean, they aren't just participating in the moment. They are effectively igniting it.
Igniting. Yeah, that is the perfect word for it. Usually we just, we kind of wave our hands at that phenomenon and call it charisma or star power and just move on.
Like it's magic.
Yeah. But today, for you listening, we aren't settling for surface-level labels. We are really popping the hood to understand the mechanics of that specific kind of person. We're jumping into a deep dive on the max energy ME80 personality system to unpack the profile known as the FWFN.
Right. And in the ME80 system, this is officially called the charismatic leader. Yeah. But I want to be really clear right off the bat here. This isn't just about being popular or, having a nice smile. It is a highly specific mechanical energy flow. It's a call to action personality. So our mission today is to unpack that. How do they generate that voltage? How do they sustain it?
And blind spots.
Exactly. That's the part people usually miss, the massive hidden vulnerabilities that come with carrying all of that energy.
I really love that term, call to action personality. It sounds aggressive, but in a really productive way. So let's just start right at the top. If we had to boil the charismatic leader down to a single manifesto, like a core identity, what are we looking at?
So the core definition is very specific. The FWFN leads with warmth and pride. Their entire goal is to turn applause and pressure into forward momentum.
Okay.
Think of it this way. They gather hearts through personal charm, but they drive the actual action through pride.
Turning pressure into momentum. That's an interesting twist because, most people I know, myself included, honestly, we kind of crumble under pressure.
Right, yeah.
Don't turn it into fuel. So I guess they aren't just soaking up attention for the sake of vanity.
No, and honestly, that is the biggest misconception people have about this type. For the charismatic leader, standing at the front isn't vanity at all. It's viewed as a responsibility.
What is responsibility?
Yeah. They have this deep-seated need to be trusted, needed, and expected. That is their literal fuel source. If they're in a room, they feel a physical duty to pull scattered hearts toward one single direction.
So if they walk into that boring Tuesday meeting we were just talking about, they feel physically responsible for fixing the vibe.
Precisely. They don't just want to be seen. They want to be the catalyst that makes the team move. If the energy is stagnant, they take it personally.
Man, that sounds incredibly effective for a company. But honestly, it sounds absolutely exhausting for the individual.
Oh, it can be.
How do they actually manage that output without just burning out in 10 minutes? Like, what's the control mechanism here?
Well, it comes down to their global vision. The FWFN operates on a philosophy of, and this is a quote from the system, external consistency centered on expression and emotion.
Okay, unpack that for us. Internal, external consistency.
It means whatever they feel inside must be expressed outside.
Oh, wow.
Right. There's no filter that says, I'm super excited, but I should look professional and stoic.
Yeah, none of that corporate masking.
Exactly. If they feel it, they show it. But here is the secret sauce. They rely on what the system calls rational emotional activation.
Rational emotional activation. That sounds like a total oxymoron.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, because usually we think of rational as, logic, data, spreadsheets. And emotional as just feelings and vibes, like total opposites.
Right. But in the max energy system, specifically for this type, they aren't opposites at all. For the FWFN, emotion is a tool of logic.
Tool of logic.
Yes. They use their language, their attitude, their physical presence to establish an emotional resonance at a venue. They aren't just feeling things randomly. They are calculating rationally how to use that emotion to align the group.
So they're basically like emotional architects. They're building a vibe with a blueprint because they know it gets tangible results.
That is a perfect analogy. And to see how they build that blueprint, we really need to look under the hood at their energy matrix.
Let's do it.
So in the ME80 system, every personality has a specific stack of 4 layers: IP, IQ, EQ, and manifestation. And for the FWFN, this stack is entirely wired for high-speed output.
Okay, let's break that down for the listener layer by layer. Start us off with the bottom layer, the IP or the inner value layer. What is the engine running this machine?
The IP layer for the charismatic leader is energy drive activation. This is the source code. It's where that intense drive to lead and connect actually originates.
Okay.
It's a pure propulsive force that just says go. It's not passive in the slightest. It's an active generator. You know, some types have an engine that says analyze or harmonize.
Right.
This one just says activate.
Okay, so the engine is running really hot. Now let's move up a level to the IQ layer, the emotional activation layer, which is interesting because usually I think of IQ as just, book smarts or cold risk assessment. How does it work for them?
Yeah, this is a really crucial distinction in the system. For the FWFN, the IQ function is indeed risk and consequence judgment.
Okay.
However, they process that risk through an emotional activation lens.
What does that mean in plain English? Give me an example of that.
Okay, imagine a CEO looking at a spreadsheet that says a new initiative is financially risky. A standard logical type might just look at it and say, the numbers don't work, kill the project.
Right, pure math.
Exactly. But the FWFN looks at it and asks, how will killing this project feel to the team? Is it going to kill our momentum? Will it inspire fear or apathy?
I see. So a bad risk to them is something that kills the mood or breaks trust, not necessarily just something that loses money.
Exactly. They might actually take a financial risk just to save the emotional atmosphere of the company. Their entire judgment of risk is tied to the human element.
That explains so much. It explains why some of these charismatic leaders make decisions that just completely baffle the accountants.
Yes.
They're optimizing for a completely different metric.
They are optimizing for morale and momentum, always. Which leads us perfectly into the EQ layer, the decision calculation layer.
Right?
For them, this function is emotional expression and release. This is the processing center where they calculate exactly how to express themselves to get that desired result.
So if the IP is the engine saying go, and the IQ is the radar saying, hey, the crowd needs hope right now, the EQ is the part that decides, okay, I'm going to tell this specific story with this specific warm tone of voice.
You've got it. It is the real-time strategy behind the performance. And finally, that leads to the top level, the manifestation layer.
The actual output.
Right. The function here is energy released outward. The outcome is impact, action, manifestation. All that internal processing we just talked about converts directly into tangible external momentum.
They don't just sit on it.
Never. They don't keep it inside. If an FWFN is thinking it and feeling it, you are going to see it.
So it's a straight line from the heart right to the stage.
It really is. And this brings us to the deep analysis of their inner traits. The report describes their core trait as charm as energy essence.
Charm is energy. I like that phrasing. It means it's not just, being nice or polite.
No, not at all. For them, expression is ignition. The report highlights a very specific mechanic here. They have the ability to rapidly sense venue atmosphere.
Oh, reading the room.
But reading it at lightning speed. They can walk in, read the room in seconds, and automatically adjust their tone and pace to pull wandering attention back to the core target.
I've totally seen this happen. When a speaker notices the crowd is getting a little bored or restless, so they suddenly drop their voice to almost a whisper.
Yes.
Or they crack a quick, self-deprecating joke, and suddenly everyone is just locked right back in.
That is the exact mechanic. They don't force you to listen, they inspire you to listen. Once they awaken that recognition in you, the action just follows naturally. They ignite the spark, and the fire spreads on its own.
Okay, this all sounds incredibly powerful, almost like a superpower. But we promised a deep dive today, and that means we have to look at the shadows too.
We do.
It sounds perfect so far, but what is the catch? Where does this charismatic leader trip up?
Here is where it gets really fascinating and honestly a little heartbreaking. The report identifies their primary shadow blind spot as self-esteem highly connected.
Connected to what, exact?
Connected directly to external feedback. Because their energy is so entirely focused on resonance and connection, they are incredibly vulnerable to how they are received by others.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. A minor oversight, a lack of applause, or even a tiny expression of doubt from someone can be amplified internally into complete value negation.
Whoa. Value negation, that is heavy. So you mean if someone, say, yawns in the front row, they don't just think, oh, that guy didn't sleep well. They think, I am failing right now.
In their worst moments, yes. It feels like a fundamental rejection of their core value. And this triggers a massive defensive mechanism. When their emotions are triggered negatively like that, their attitudes can harden instantly.
How does that look in the wild? Like if I'm working with an FWFN and I casually critique their idea in a meeting, what actually happens?
Well, they might make quick commitments that strain resources just to prove themselves.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Imagine a leader who feels their team is losing faith in them, so they suddenly promise, we're going to double our bonus pool this year, without even checking the budget first.
Ouch. So they try to buy back the love with big, impossible promises.
Exactly. They wrap pressure in warmth. They completely refuse to show vulnerability because they genuinely think their value only comes from being the strong, infallible, charismatic leader.
Right.
And this severely affects their judgment balance. They stop listening to that risk radar we talked about,
Yeah.
the IQ layer, because they're stuck in damage control mode for their own ego.
Man, that explains so much about certain leaders I've worked with in the past. They are absolutely amazing when things are going great, but the second you criticize them, the walls go up so fast.
Which leads right into their social relations. The report calls their social dynamic center stage existence.
Understate.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. They are naturally pushed to the front stage because they stir the atmosphere so well.
People want them there.
Right.
Okay.
But because they are always the focal point, everyone else around them becomes exceptionally sensitive to the FWFN's mood shifts.
Oh, it's the walking on eggshells effect, isn't it?
It definitely can be.
Yeah.
If the charismatic leader is happy, the whole office is thrilled. If they are moody or defensive, the whole office is terrified.
Wow. And if their dignity boundaries are touched, if they feel disrespected publicly, their response is usually amplified for the whole room to see.
They clap back hard.
They really do. This creates an environment where people feel both respect and caution around them. People love them, they're drawn to that incredible warmth, but they also know not to get burned by the fire.
So given all this context, the high energy, the immense charm, but also the deep sensitivity and the ego defense, where do they actually belong in the business world? What is their supreme value to an organization?
Their absolute superpower is powerful on-site appeal. In a business context, they push cooperation through emotional trust, rather than just institutional command.
So they aren't the ones sending an email saying, do this because it's company policy rule number 4. They're the ones standing up saying, do this because we're building something amazing together.
Exactly. They act as the organization's natural outward image and morale representative. They are vital for maintaining consistency.
Consistency in what way?
When things are complex or chaotic, the team looks directly to the FWFN to see how they should feel about it.
Wow.
By repeatedly emphasizing the meaning behind the work, the charismatic leader keeps the team pacing forward, even when the path is super unclear.
So if you're hiring right now, or if you're listening and you are an FWFMN trying to figure out your own career path, where should you go? What professional fields does the Max Energy Report actually recommend?
There are 4 key areas where this personality type truly thrives. First is team leadership and external representation.
Okay.
This is anywhere where the core job is gathering hearts and establishing a vision.
Makes total sense, like a CEO, a spokesperson, maybe a politician.
Exactly. Second is public expression and event mobilization. These are roles where you need to ignite an atmosphere and guide immediate action. Think large-scale event hosting, fundraising, or high-stakes public relations.
The person who actually gets the donor to write the check or gets the crowd to sign the petition.
Right. Third is emotion-mobilizing transformation contexts.
That's a mouthful.
It is, but it's niche and very important. Think of change management or crisis leadership. When morale is shaky and uncertainty is extremely high, you need an FWFN to step in and stabilize the emotional ship.
Oh, that's the Braveheart speech moment. When everything is falling apart and the numbers look terrible, you need someone who just fundamentally believes.
Yes, beautifully said. And finally, the 4th area is brand, community, and culture building. It's granting an organization its soul and creating what the report calls cultural contagion.
Cultural contagion, I really like that.
Yeah.
Making the brand feel alive and infectious.
It is, but, and this is arguably the most important part of our deep dive today, none of this works long-term if they don't address that shadow we talked about.
The self-esteem trap. The ego defense.
Yes. The report actually ends with a very powerful conclusion, a sort of golden sentence for this specific profile.
Let's hear it.
It says, when charismatic leaders learn self-care beyond the stage, letting vulnerability have outlets and different paces be contained, charm no longer becomes a passing breeze. It transforms into stable, sustainable leadership force.
Wow. That is profound. Letting vulnerability have outlets. It really sounds like the ultimate key to being a true charismatic leader is actually having the bravery to take off the mask when the spotlight is off.
Precisely. If they can separate their inherent self-worth from the applause of the crowd, they become completely unstoppable. They stop leading for the validation and they start leading for the vision.
Yeah.
That is when charisma shifts from just a personality trait into a true force of nature.
You know, it's a great reminder for you listening. It makes me think that true charisma, the kind that lasts, actually requires the bravery to be vulnerable in quiet rooms. The people who light up the stage need a safe place off stage where they can just be dim for a while and recharge without feeling like they're failing.
Absolutely. That offstage rest is the battery for the onstage fire.
I love that. Well, if you are listening to this and recognizing yourself, or maybe your boss or your partner, in this description, there is so much more to uncover. Just to remind everyone, this deep dive was based entirely on the Max Energy ME80 personality assessment.
It really is a fascinating and comprehensive system. If listeners want to explore the full report or understand the mechanics of the other energy types, they should definitely check out the official website at www.maxenergylife.com. There are incredibly detailed breakdowns there.
And for those of you scrolling through social media, you can also search on Facebook for Max Energy Personality Science or Min-Energy Personality Psychology. The communities there are fantastic.
Highly recommended. Understanding your own energy matrix is really the first step to mastering it.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for guiding us through the mind of the charismatic leader today.
It was a pleasure.
And to you, the listener, whether you're the one on stage igniting the room or the one in the audience feeling the warmth, remember, true energy comes from authenticity. We'll see you on the next deep dive.
Take care, everyone.